Alright, what's going on, y'all? So in today's video, we're going to be talking about something a little special. Not playing VGC today. We are going to be talking about new Paradox Pokemon. Now, we don't actually have any confirmed new Paradox Pokemon. I just thought that it would be fun to kind of just speculate on what some new Paradox Pokemon could look like, and talk about some kind of trends that we've seen in Paradox Pokemon to try to understand what Pokemon might end up getting Paradox forms. Some things to point out before we get into it. We did recently get a look at a new character, Cyrano, with a Honedge scarf, which is a little suspicious, and we'll talk about that later in the video. Something else is that we also recently had a Reddit post, which I did not try to re-find, coming up, basically doing fake spoilers, talking about the idea that maybe the DLC will give us the opposites of the paradoxes that we already have. So instead of like a future Delibird, we get a past Delibird. Instead of a past Jigglypuff, we get a future Jigglypuff, past Hariyama, things like that. I don't find any credibility in that leak, because we had a similar leak come out speculating on Walking Wake, and things like that, calling them like Storm Chaser and something else, and of course there was just, the information was unfounded, so I wouldn't listen to that other one, but the Cyrano thing we definitely will talk about. But the general course of what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about current Paradox patterns in the Paradox Pokemon we already have. We will talk about what we might expect in new Paradox Pokemon based on those patterns. And then we will end the video with something very fun, just looking at some drawings that I made of some Paradox Pokemon that I thought would be cool. And I do want to preface that by saying that I did not have the ability to make colorized versions of my drawings without making them look bad, so I kept them in black and white, and I hope we can appreciate that to some degree. But with that being said, thank you all for tuning in, and let's jump into it. So, current patterns that we know about Paradox Pokemon, just to kind of lay it out, first and foremost, the past Pokemon are based off of Jigglypuff, Misdreavus, Salamence, Amoonguss, and Magneton, while the future Pokemon are based off of Hariyama, Delibird, Hydreigon, Tyranitar, and Gallade, while both games have a form of Donphan, Volcarona, and whether or not we want to admit it, Cyclizar. Cyclizar is actually the present form of Koraidon and Miraidon, which is very obvious if we're being honest, but some people might not have put that together somehow. So yeah, Koraidon and Miraidon are actually paradox forms of Cyclizar. But talking about the patterns from what we already have a little bit more generally, one of the things that we can point out is that Tyranitar, or not Tyranitar, sorry, I just looked at the picture of Tyranitar. The past Pokemon all have odd stats, while the future Pokemon all have even stats. So they'll have stats that are actually ending in odd or even numbers based on if they are past or future. So, like 51 versus like 52, like special attack if you don't have special attack, right? We also see that most of the Paradox Pokemon have 570 base stat total. However, some of the more powerful ones, like I think Roaring Moon, have 590. So, you're either going to have 590 or 570 BST as a Paradox Pokemon. Some of the typicalities that we see in the Paradoxes, however, just like what is something that is likely to get made into a Paradox Pokemon. We have cool 2-stage evolutions, Amoonguss, Hariyama, Donphan, Magneton, just Pokemon that I think have always had a lot of potential, but would be even cooler with a little touch-up, right? And Amoonguss arguably did not need that touch-up, but Root Bonnet is certainly fun, right? We also have first stage Pokemon that deserve love. You know, Jigglypuff, Mischievous, Delibird, all very cute. Just really cool to see brought into a new light and be very deadly, right? Then the Pokemon that really stand out as like very, very definitive patterns is we have quite a few pseudo-legendary paradoxes. Tyranitar, Salamence, Volcarona, Hydreigon, they're all pseudo-legendaries. And then we also have Pokemon that have Mega Evolutions as well being found as some of the paradoxes. So, you know, Salamence, Tyranitar, Gallade, and in many instances, the Mega Evolutions actually resemble the paradox a little. Tyranitar's really doesn't, but Gallade's and Salamence's definitely do. So from that, there's a few things that we might expect. We should definitely expect them to be Pokemon that are going to be in the game, right? Like, I would say, if anything, it's going to be Pokemon that are in the DLC and not Pokemon that are already in the game. However, I did make an example of a Pokemon that's already in the game as one of my paradoxes, just because I like it, you know, just because I like it. But more than anything, if we do get new paradoxes, they're probably going to be Pokemon that are in the DLC. At least that's my guess. You know, I could be wrong, but that's what I would say. We definitely should think about the pseudo-legendary thing, though. New pseudo-legendaries just pseudo-legendaries that do not yet have Paradox Pokemon are Dragonite, Metagross, Garchomp, Haxorus, Dragapult, Baxcalibur. I don't expect Goodra because we just got Hisui and Goodra, and I think Pokemon with regional forms are just a little bit less likely to be given paradoxes just because it's like another form, you know? It's like, do we need another form? And more than anything, I think Metagross is the one that I expect. So Metagross, as we'll talk about later, is like my top candidate for might become a new Paradox Pokemon. But there's also the Pokemon that will be introduced in the DLC, right? Cottony, Yanma, I think would be a really cool one, which is why I highlighted it, right? Chimicho, Chimecho, Vikavolt, Vulpix. And things that I would not expect are just, like I said, Pokemon that already have regional forms, but we might actually end up seeing new regional forms, and that's something that we'll actually talk about as well. You know, we could get more Paldean forms in the DLC, besides paradoxes, So Pokemon that I would just like to try to maybe predict as getting Paradox forms, not ones that I drew, but just like if we're really thinking about it, like I'm going to try to predict these ones. Metagross, Doublade, Whimsicott, or Cottony. I think it's just one of those cute Pokemon that deserves a touch-up. Yanma, Snorlax, Vulpix. I would really love to see Snorlax actually get a Paradox form, and I'm gonna 100% make a video on a Paradox Snorlax, so. But yeah, Pokemon that are already in the game I don't really expect, and I definitely don't expect starters to be done. You know, like, starters are generally left untouched, except for, you know, in the way that Hisui did. And I don't expect something like Mudsdale, for example, right? Because, like, it's literally already in the game. But, stepping back for a second, let's look at what are the returning Pokemon. So, the returning Pokemon in the first part of the DLC, the Vulpix line, the Munchlax line, Sentret line, Hoodoo, Aipom, Yanma, Gligar, Poochyena, Seedot, Corphish, Chimicho, Chimecho, Feebas and Melodic, the Vikavolt line. I think Vikavolt would be an amazing Pokemon to make a past or future form out of. Then we have, in the second part, Sealed, Exeggutor, and Exeggcute, Trapinch line, Feebas again for whatever reason, Metagross, Zebstrika, Whimsicott, Chinchino, Reuniclus, Golurk, Meowstic, and Alcremie. So if we really want to look anywhere for ideas for what might get a new form, those are things, right? Like Golurk, I think is a massive candidate when you look at these Pokemon. Metagross, massive candidate. I don't expect Milotic. Flygon, definitely. Like, Flygon, definitely. They're not going to leave Flygon untouched. I'm just throwing that out there. Everyone wants to see Flygon represented in a better light. Just as a Pokemon with more potential. So, I'm putting that one up for sure. But before we go on to the more fun part, talking about my stuff that I came up with to show you, my drawings, let's just talk about Honedge and Cyrano for a second. So, we did get this new character, Cyrano. I'm not 100% sure what part of the DLC it's from. I do apologize. But he does have a Honedge scarf. And to me, when I think about it, I actually think the Honedge scarf is indicative of a Paldean Honedge. I think we're going to get a regional Honedge form instead of a Paradox Honedge. And originally I thought we might get Paradox Honedge. I actually made my drawing of Paradox Honedge, spoiler, before we found out about this character, like a month ago. So it's time to make this video, right? And when you do think about like Galar, for example, we got all the Galar forms, and then we got Galar Slowbro came in. Surprise! Galar Slowbro's a thing. So, DLC is a time to release new regional forms sometimes, and I'm not going to count Honedge out. But, with that being said, what if they gave Honedge a Paradox form? So let's jump into my drawings and get into the last part of this video. So, I came up with a past form of Honedge called Napped Chip. I also graded my original drawings, so we're here to have fun. We're here to just chill, be little silly billies. We're certainly not trying to be judgmental, so be easy on me, of course. But I thought it'd be fun to judge myself while we're at it. First judgment I had was my drawing of Honedge is great, 5 out of 5. But talking about Napped Chip, the idea behind Napped Chip as a Pokemon, and again, it being a past form of Honedge, Napped Chip is supposed to be a obsidian chip that was chipped by previous humans and is taken over by a, Pokemon spirit. So it's basically like a haunted rock, right? It's a possessed obsidian chip. And it is certainly menacing. So, design-wise, I love it. It's a really cool Pokemon. Ghost Rock type, as you can imagine. 570 BST, 53 HP, 139 attack, 39 defense, 139 special attack, 39 special defense, and 161 speed. So this thing is booking, and it needs a focus sash. But you don't want to see something that looks like this running at you with 161 speed. It's an uncomfortable amount of speed for something that looks like this. It's kind of like a creepy spider thing, if we're being honest. And it's fun, Ultimately, I really like how a lot of these designs ended up. And yeah, so I don't know. You can definitely kind of imagine it just skittering along the ground a little. And one thing I did think about is the fact that technically we might get a Doublade Paradox form if that were the case, if we were going to get a Paradox. Because Cyrano's, it's two sides, it's a scarf with two sides. So I also drew a Paradox form of Doublade to kind of accentuate this look a little, because in the original picture you can't really tell, but the arm is kind of supposed to be attached to the back leg, and the back leg is supposed to be a little bit longer, kind of like a tail, right? And in the Doughblade form, we see, you know, 2 obsidian needles, of course, instead of 1 because it's Doughblade. And we have 2 arms coming off of the back instead of 1, right? But what we also see is the kind of dual stance mode that Aegislash can do, where this Pokemon can also kind of close its obsidian needles together, and it can lift its back tail up to line the back obsidian needle and kind of use those more literally as arms instead of kind of just as like back arms in some weird way, right? But really cool design, really cool idea for a Ghost Rock Pokemon. Obviously it hits very hard, but it has no defense like a literal obsidian needle. And this was originally going to be the last slide until I found out that Cyrano was a thing, so we made this the first paradox we were going to talk about. But with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. Stick around, but this is the thank you part. So please consider leaving a like and comment, and subscribing if you are not and you appreciate it, because I definitely appreciate you for tuning in and being here. QOTV, what is your favorite drawing that I'm showing you today? And what is another Pokemon that you hope gets a Paradox form? Also, should I do another video like this with Pokemon that you guys suggest, or just more Pokemon that I want to do? Because I like doing stuff like this. This is cool content to me. I really like speculating on possible Pokemon that don't exist, because something that I've noticed is the longer you look at these Pokemon, the longer they actually look like real cool Pokemon. Like, when I first made these drawings, I was kind of like, whatever. But, like, you know, you put down the picture of Napped Chip or Sharp Splinter, but it just doesn't fit in. It's Sharp Splinter is 13 characters, so we have Napped Chip. When you put the picture down and you come back to it, it looks even better, is all I'm saying. So, going on to our second Paradox Pokemon, we have a past form of Carnivine. My picture of Carnivine that I drew is not really good, so 3 out of 5. His face is too round and his smile is too creepy. But the past form of Carnivine, Perch Snare, the idea behind Perch Snare is that Perch Snare would be found along like a really big rock face, hanging off of the rock face. So you can see on the top of Perch Snare is kind of like a piece of rock that the vines have embedded themselves into, so that Perch Snare can hang off of the rock face. And it kind of just hangs there waiting for something to go by so that it can like extend its vines out and lunge at things and attack them that way, right? So Perch Snare is basically like it's hanging from a rock face and it lunges out to attack things, right? But I really like the design on this. I think it turned out looking really cool. Obviously it's kind of like upside down compared to normal Carnivine. But Perch Snare is a grass rock type with 570 base stat total, 65 HP, 131 attack, 85 defense, 79 special attack, 115 special defense, and 95 speed. So, you know, it's not the slowest thing ever. It really embodies how snappy it wants to be. It wants to jump out at you if you get too close. So don't get too close to my boy Perch Snare. But yeah, I really like, I just like coming up with these. I like kind of thinking about the general idea behind the Pokemon, how it came to be, you know, things like that. And, you know, you can kind of see it also has a bit of like a toxic ooze that comes out of it. And also you can see some dripping off of its mouth. And, you know, the mouth on this one a bit more embodies the Vileplume line, moving a bit away from the Venus flytrap look of the Carnivine. You can imagine that the Perch Snare started off with a bit more of a Vileplume-like flower, and then the flower turned into more of a Venus flytrap, right? And not only that, but we get a future form of Carnivine as well, which I thought would be fun to do. So we get even more Venus flytrappy, you know? You go from Vileplume-like flower to Venus flytrap to Iron Trap. And the idea behind Iron Trap is it's kind of supposed to be a little rapscallion. I imagine this thing like with its arms just extended out like that, running at you, and it kind of like opens its mouth up really wide and chomping down, you know what I mean? So I really imagine its rapscallionness with it like animated and just like running at you in a way that's like Veluza, that's really annoying, you know? It's like but if we look at the design of it, it has kind of like electric tendrils, right? So you can see its teeth have become electrical, you know, lightning bolts basically, instead of like plant teeth. And you can see that the veins on its arms have electricity running down them. And, you know, electricity coming out of the hands. I accidentally gave it 5 legs instead of 6 legs, but that 5th leg curls up into a tail that has a spark coming out of it that it kind of keeps in the middle of the tail curled up a little bit, and electricity shoots out of it, right? So Iron Trap is a grass electric type, 120 HP, 100 attack, 70 defense, 120 special attack, 60 special defense, and 110 speed. So definitely has the potential to be a fast Pokemon. I kind of overlooked how high some of the Paradox stats actually get when I was making these Pokemon. So like technically if you wanted to make this thing better, you give it 90 attack and 130 special attack, right? And I just didn't realize that, like, yes, we actually are making special attacks and things like that high now. You know, like 140 is not a weird number anymore. It's a very high number, but it's not that absurd. So just something fun to kind of keep the lore extended. You know, Iron Trap may be a fast rapscallion, but when it gets tired, it can plant itself down on the ground and just spread its legs out a little bit and kind of act more like the plant that it really is, and make that Iron Trap. So it, you know, it spreads its legs out, opens its mouth, and kind of acts a bit more like an anglerfish, where it's just trying to, you know, dazzle and, you know, lure the enemy in, you know, with its light coming out of its tail, being generated by its teeth, and also being generated by its arms that it sticks straight up in the air when it does this. So you can imagine it kind of just hanging out there, opening up, waiting for something to come by, and it, you know, snaps closed and Iron Traps it. Cool stuff, and I thought it would just be really cool to, the same way that I did for the napped chip, just to make another angle basically to really help us get the personality of the Pokemon a little bit better, right? Really bring it to life. So going on to the fourth one technically, we have Iron Crest, which is a past form of, or I mean a future form, excuse me, of Type Null. My drawing of Type Null turned out really good. It's not perfect, so I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. But the idea behind Iron Crest is that all of the a bit more antiquated features of Type Null have now been like smoothed out into a more Razor type finish, right? So whereas the old Type Null is like more brass and like bone, practically, like it looks like it has like a bone hammer on its head, the Iron Crest would have like practically like X-Acto knife type things with razor thin, razor sharp tail. The wings are either just make them bigger or make them not there because they look awkward, right? And then the crest also being like razor sharp and like silver instead of the bronze, right? And you can also see the thing going around its mouth being more circular instead of box-like and being sharp. But generally, this is my least favorite drawing that I made. I just don't think it turned out very good. But Hypnol is one of my favorite Pokemon, so I thought it'd be nice to do it justice and give it a past form. Future form. Iron Crested is a pure Steel type, 590 base stats, 110 health, 60 attack, 110 defense, 100 defense, 110 special attack, 100 special defense, and 110 speed. Originally I had this with 90 speed and 80 attack, but I thought that didn't sound that fun. So this is a better stat dispersion. And the one special thing about Iron Crest is that it does have a signature move called Materia Edge. Materia Edge is a normal move that is 100 power, 100 accuracy, less powerful than Silvali's move, but it's a little bit more special. So what Materia Edge does is it turns Iron Crest into the type of the move used last, and then if you use Materia Edge twice in a row, consecutively, it becomes the type you turned into, and you get that stab, right? So let's say you have an Iron Crest that knows like Flame Charge and Materia Edge. You use Flame Charge on turn 1, you use Materia Edge on turn 2. On turn 2, Materia Edge is a normal move, but it turns you into a fire type. Kind of like Silvally, right? Then if you use Materia Edge again on turn 3, it is now a fire type move and it gets stabbed. So you can really imagine that Iron Crest would be really good with a item like Metronome, where, you know, Materia Edge just gets stronger and stronger and you can lock into a type. But you don't have to lock into a type. If you, for example, you want to use Snarl, you use Snarl now. You're still a fire type, but now you can use Snarl. If you use Materia Edge again, now it's a normal type again, but it turns you into a dark type. Use it again, now Materia Edge is a dark move. So it's just a cool way to make Iron Crest a little fancy, you know. Going on to our 4th Paradox Pokemon, I think this is actually the 5th Paradox Pokemon now. I do want to point out again that I don't think this is a likely Paradox Pokemon because it's already in the game. But I like Shuppet. I think Shuppet's design as a Pokemon deserves a Paradox, just because it is a cool Pokemon. My drawing is terrible, but it's so terrible that it gets a 6 out of 5. Look at those eyes. Look at that smile. 6 out of 5. Absolutely terrible. Love it. But the idea behind Lost Blanket, personally, I love the design of this Paradox Pokemon. And the point of this Paradox Pokemon is that it's like a spirit that picked up a child's lost blanket and is carrying it around for the child, looking for the child, right? So it's like defending the blanket, trying to return it to its original owner. If we wanted to be even darker, maybe the spirit is the original owner. But, you know, I didn't want to go there. I'm just saying, Pokemon lore does get a little bit dark sometimes. So we've got a blanket being carried around by a spirit. And I just really like it, the design. I know Shuppet is kind of already a ghost blanket, so, like, I'm just saying. And I love how its head is design-wise turned into, like, holding up the blanket, right? So Lost Blanket is a ghost dark type, 570 BST again, 55 HP, 103 attack, 149 defense, 39 special attack, 149 special defense, and 85 speed. So kind of mid-speed bracket, very defense heavy, and also being a physical hitting ghost type, which we don't have that much of. So while this Pokemon is a bit more similar to like Screamtail, being a very defensive first stage Paradox, with a Life Orb, I think Lost Blanket will actually be able to fare pretty well with like a Adamant Nature max attack and then being invested in bulk. Or, I mean, you could make it fast, but probably bulky, right? So I think like a life orb or or something of that nature, you know, booster energy, whatever, Lost Blanket could actually be really cool. So yeah, just really cool Pokemon. I really like the design on it, and I didn't want to leave it just there. We may have a past Shuppet, but now we've got a future Bayonet. The future Bayonet, while I think it's as derpy, or I mean not the future Bayonet, the drawing of Bayonet that I did, while it is as derpy as the Shuppet, it just does not have the same appeal. It just doesn't. So 1 out of 5, my guy, I'm sorry. You just don't cut it. You're too awkward looking. Not the same appeal. But Iron Hero, definitely up there with one of my favorite designs that I came up with. Iron Blanket, or I mean Lost Blanket and Iron Hero, both just amazingly designed Paradox Pokemon. And you can see Iron Hero is... I also had the name Iron Doll. I just settled on Iron Hero, but that's basically what it is, right? It's like a doll that, you know, now it's wearing its blanket as a cape. And its arms are flat. They do not bend. Its arms stay flat. Originally, I had them going around like a copter, but I decided that was kind of cheesy, and I like the more George Jetson look of it, with the jets, the circle jets coming out of the bottom as like a propulsion, and you know the cape is just a cape, right? We got blowing in the wind cape, but very cool design, and even better than that, Iron Hero is a ghost fighting type. So we get a ghost fighting type, 570 BST, 90 HP, 90 attack, 90 defense, 130 special attack, 50 special defense, 120 speed. So this, for the love of finally, is a good special attacking fighting Pokemon. We've got like none of them, but we got this one. And so I'd love to see this thing shooting off Aura Spheres. I'd love to see it shooting off Shadow Balls. And to go along with our trying to just show things in multiple lights to accentuate their personality, you know, sometimes the little details make all the difference. And something that I thought would be really cool to do for Iron Hero is to actually help it remind us of how awesome Arbok is. So on the back of Iron Hero's cape, it has Arbok's face that's on its stomach, and I imagine that sometimes when Iron Hero is attacking or trying to threaten its enemies, it will lift its cape up over its head, like you see in the middle picture, and kind of create that Arbok intimidation look. And I guess, what was I trying to say? I just think it'd be cool to see it like lift its cape up like that actively while it's like using Shadow Ball or something. So I imagine it being like a very like active animation, right? Like it lifts its cape up and then you get to see it do that, you know? So just really cool design. I really like how it adds to the personality of our good friend Iron Hero here. And yeah, I don't know what more I want to say about it. Just thank you guys for tuning in. Going on to our last Paradox Pokemon, we have Feral Hound. So first and foremost, 5 out of 5 on my Daxbun picture, or whatever you want to call it, Dashbun, Daxbun, Dashbun. He's the bun. It's a piece of bread. And the one thing that I don't like about my Dashbun drawing is that the bun on the left side is too low. But what we see with our friend Feral Hound here is that while Dashbun is like a piece of bread, what comes before bread? Yeast and fungus. So Feral Hound is a form where the fungus has not yet turned into bread. And we see its ears are literally mushrooms, its tail is mushrooms, and its fur is more of that like mycelium, right? Which I think is a nice addition. But the one thing that we don't get from this picture is that the line that's going up its tail is actually supposed to connect to its ears. So the ears are supposed to kind of like merge together and then go down into the tail, which you don't get in this picture that I drew. But, you know, when I was trying to make this picture, I had to really think about, like, how do you make a dog look menacing? Like, it's doing that, like, raising its cackles thing and, like, growling, right? And what I noticed is the 3 lines on the side of the face and the slightly angled eyes are what really make dogs look menacing when they're growling and they're trying to raise their hackles up. So that's what I tried to picture there. And, you know, we've also got the fangs, of course, because it's, you know, it's a hound, it's a feral, it's mean. You want this thing to be threatening. And I also think that Dachshund's sound would sound really cool as a paradox form with the past sound overlapping it. So you get that. Feral Hound is a fairy poison type, 570 BST, 85 HP, 125 attack, 111 defense, 69 special attacks, 75 special defense, and 105 speed. So it's pretty fast. I mean, it's not like the slowest thing ever, obviously. It's not the fastest thing ever. It's definitely on the faster side. This thing really likes an assault vest, in my opinion. It's our second fairy poison type after Galar Weezing. And I think fairy poison is a really cool type, and I would really love to see it used again to a good extent like this. One thing to point out is that Ghost Rock is a type that we just don't have at all yet. So Napped Chip is special in the sense that it's a new type. We literally don't have any Ghost Rocks. But we could, and that would be Napped Chip. But that's everything I had to show you guys today. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Definitely let me know what you think was the coolest one I showed. What's a Pokemon that you would like to see a paradox form of? And if you would like to see me draw one, I will for you. And we're definitely going to do Snorlax as well. So yeah, thank you guys. Here is all of them just to look at together. Here they are. Here's the boys. We've got Iron Crest, Iron Trap. What was it? It's not Hanging Snare anymore. It's what's the new name? Because it was Hanging Snare. I don't remember. Anyways, we have Hanging Snare that's not called Hanging Snare anymore. We have Feral Hound, we have Lost Blanket, and we have Iron Dog. So yeah, I really hope you guys have enjoyed looking at all these. And yeah, just have a good day.